Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. In today's video I'll be showing you how to make the best moi moi. But before we get started, if you're new to my channel, kindly hit the red subscribe button and turn on your notification post. So without wasting much of your time, let's get started. Here are the list of ingredients and the full list will be in the description box below, so please do well to check it out later. To get started, I will start by soaking the beans for about 10 or 15 minutes before washing or deskinning. And here I'll be using honey beans, but you can also use the black eye beans, it works as well. So after about 10 or 15 minutes thereabout, you will notice that the skin can easily come off the beans. But however, if yours is still quite tough, after 10 or 15 minutes, you can just allow it to soak a bit more before washing. So now I'm just going to go ahead and wash the beans with my hands. I'm just going to be scrubbing them in between my palms, but however, you can also use a blender using the pause button. Once all the skin is out of the beans, just like this, we are going to be using a strainer to strain them out, and we're going to be repeating the same process till our beans is completely clean. At this point, our beans is clean. As you can see, I have taken my time to rinse out all the chaff. So the next step is to allow the beans to soak for about an hour or two. That way it will be easier for the blender to blend. So once I'm done adding the water, I'll set the beans aside and allow to soak. While the beans is soaking, I'll proceed to prep the rest of my ingredients. So I'm going to be blending my crayfish. I'll also peel the boiled eggs, blend my peppers, onions, ginger, and garlic. I'm using boiled eggs for this recipe, but you can use any protein of your choice. And if you're going to be using boiled eggs, all you need to do is to boil your eggs on a medium heat for about 12 minutes and you are good to go. I have also gone ahead to prep my peppers, onions, ginger, and garlic. If for any reason you don't like ginger and garlic, please feel free to exclude it. I love the taste in my meals. And I'll be using these ramekins for the moi moi, but you can use any container you have or leaves for the moi moi. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and grease them with some oil. If the ramekins are not enough, I'm going to be using some foil plates or my baking pan to scoop in the remaining. 2 hours later and the beans is properly soaked and ready to be blended. But just before we begin with the blending process, I'll go ahead and heat up some chicken broth because I would like to add the broth warm to the blended beans and not cold. If you don't have chicken broth, you can also use water. Next, I'll go ahead and crush in my chicken seasoning cubes. You can use any stock cube of your choice. This method ensures that the seasoning cubes incorporate very well into the blended beans, because trust me, I have eaten stock cubes in Moi Moi before, and I tell you something, it is not pleasant at all. Sometimes I also blend the seasoning cubes with the beans. So I'm going to be blending the beans in 2 batches, and here I have half of the beans and half of the pepper mix in the blender. I'm just going to go ahead and add some water, just enough to help the blades of my blender. And in as much as Moi Moi requires water, unlike akara, you have to be very careful of the amount of water you add, because if you add excess water, the beans and peppers, especially the beans, is just going to be there floating. You know, they are not going to blend smoothly. So now we're going to go ahead and blend this till they are nice and smooth. Here comes the first batch, and oh my goodness, just take a look at that color. So here I still have some of the blended beans, and I'm going to be using this to blend the second batch because I wouldn't want to add excess water. And here we go. I'm using some of that chicken broth to rinse out the blender, but like I said earlier, you can also use water. So now it is time to mix, add our ingredients, mix, 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 and combine. All right, so first I'm going to start by adding in my blended crayfish. Next, I'll be adding some salt to taste. I'm using extra virgin olive oil. You can feel free to use vegetable oil or any other oil of your choice. So now it is time to add the broth, and I also have my chicken seasoning cubes dissolved in here already. So I'm going to be adding half of the stock, and I'm going to reserve the rest. I'll mix, and then if I need the remaining, I'll add that later. So now we're going to go ahead and mix, 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 and add more stock or water if that's what you're using. You want to add the liquid bit by bit. You just don't want to add everything at once. And for Moi Moi, you don't want the batter to be very thick. If it is very thick, then you end up with a very strong Moi Moi. And if it is too light, you're going to end up with a very soft Moi Moi. I like my Moi Moi to be, you know, just in between, not too soft and not too hard. So at this point, I just added the remaining stock. I'm going to mix well to combine. And if I see that the batter is still very thick, then I'll add more water. But if it is okay, then I'll just go ahead and scoop that into my ramekins. And be sure to test your seasoning and adjust if needed. This consistency is just perfect for me. It is not too thick or too watery. So at this point, I'll just go ahead and scoop them into my ramekins. Alright, so I still have some beans batter in the bowl. I think I'll be using my baking pan to bake the remaining. So at this point, it is time to add in our proteins, and I'm going to be placing 1 whole boiled egg in each of the ramekin. You can feel free to cut the eggs into 2 if you prefer. So because I'm placing 1 whole boiled egg in each of the ramekins, I just noticed the weight of the egg is causing the beans batter to float or to rise to the top of the ramekin. So what I'm going to do once I'm done adding in the eggs is just to scoop out some of the beans batter so that the moi moi will have enough chance to, you know, rise. The next step is to place a rack in a big pot to elevate the ramekins. Next, you're going to transfer the whole ramekins into the pot. Then pour in some hot boiled water. Be careful not to pour in the water into the moi moi. So just before covering with the lid, you're going to cover the pot with a foil or parchment paper, and you can also cover the ramekins individually with a foil paper as well. Next, you're going to cover and allow to cook on a medium heat for about an hour and topping up water when necessary. So I transferred the remaining beans batter into my cake pan, and of course I greased it with some oil before pouring in the batter. And I'm going to be baking this one in the oven for about an hour as well. You can also cook this on the stove top. I transferred into a squared pan. I'm going to pour some hot boiled water, then carefully transfer this into my preheated 180 degrees Celsius oven, and like I said earlier, I'll be baking this for about an hour as well. 1 hour later and the moi moi is ready, and here is the oven baked one, which you can also cook on the stove top, but I just decided to bake this one in the oven. This moi moi tasted so delicious, and I hope you give it a try. If you like the video, please be sure to click the like button. And if you're new to my channel, you like what you see, consider subscribing by clicking on the red button there that says subscribe, and also turn on your notification post. That's where you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time with something delicious. Bye for now.